Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, welcome. I'm so grateful you found your way here. And also, if you are a regular listener, welcome. I'm so grateful to share this time together with you. So I am an angelic practitioner and a spiritual teacher and encourager of souls. I got to create my own job title, and I'm of the mind of why use one word when 40 will do. So it's rather lengthy, but it really describes the work that I get to do. I have a wonderful job. I facilitate classes that my hope is will inspire your spirit, such as how to create your own oracle deck, angel messenger training, a business mentoring group for other soul-inspired entrepreneurs, and much more. And all of my classes take place over Zoom, and they are small in size, so you will have an opportunity to be seen, be supported, and be part of a lovely community. I also offer one-on-one sessions in the form of 1-hour angel sessions that take place over the phone. And then I offer a longer form of support, soul mentoring. So lots of ways we can connect. And you can visit me on my website, illuminating-souls.com, where you can also sign up for my mailing list. So it is a blessing to share this time with you. So this podcast is a mashup of two of my favorite forms of self-care: connecting with the angels and listening to a sleep podcast, which I do every night. I started listening regularly to sleep podcasts somewhere around 2015, and they've really become a part of my bedtime ritual. I used to watch television to go to sleep, but something shifted for me. I don't even know what it was. We still have the TV on at night in the bedroom. My husband watches TV to go to sleep. But something happened when I discovered sleep podcasts, and I use wired earbuds to my phone, and I pick an episode. Right now I'm listening to Sleepy Bookshelf, which I love. And there's something about a soft, gentle voice telling me stories or speaking in my ears of things that don't require a lot of stimulation of consciousness, not thinking, wow, that's a really important thing and I need to remember that in the morning. I'm in a place where I can give myself permission to drift off. And so I love the bridge that sleep podcasts create for me between my waking consciousness and that deep mystery that is sleep. And so I was guided to create my own sleep podcast to add to the inventory of options that were out there. So this is my unique approach that involves time with the angels that we do in the first segment. And then we move into Storytime, where I might share with you some stories from my life, recipes from a community cookbook, an old TV guide, or something similar. Each episode is about an hour, so you will have plenty of time. And there will be no loud noises, no surprises, no commercial breaks that will be loud and wake you up. It is intended to be a soft, sweet space. And so that's why I'm speaking to you this way and drawing out my words. It's all intentional. And the angels are here, the beautiful angels who love you. So this broadcast is also filled with lots of love for you. a little bit about me, perhaps, if we haven't met before. So in 2000, I went to the University of Santa Monica to join their 2-year program to receive a degree in spiritual psychology. And that program really changed my life. I think of my life as before USM and after USM. And I stayed for even more training with USM. I was part of their community for many, many years. And then I was also guided to train to be an angel therapy practitioner. And so I've blended both of those trainings together and created my own unique blend of both of those in the work that I do with illuminating souls. So my intention is always to help you remember who you are as a beautiful divine being having this human experience here on planet Earth. To help you remember your wholeness and your gifts, your abilities, your loving essence. And to create a gentle space where you know there is a place for you here. I think one of the things that we all crave is a sense of community and belonging. And even though this is a podcast, I hope that this broadcast gives you that sense, even if you don't know anybody else who listens, that right now there is a tapestry of light that allows us to connect together in the space of the heart and the spirit. And so even though we might not know each other, and I don't know where you are right now in the world while you listen, the angels know. And so this wave of love is flowing to you right now. And as for me, well, as I record this, it is early Sunday morning. I try to record these episodes a few days before I publish them, but it's been a weird 2 weeks, and so I'm going to record this and edit it and publish it all this morning. So very ambitious scheduling, but it's okay. I love what I do, and it will delight me to no end to send this off to you this morning. And even if you listen to it right away or 4 years later, the wave of love I am feeling is flowing to you now. And so I'm going to invite you to get comfortable. I know some of you do listen to this as a sleep podcast, and others of you have shared that you listen during your waking hours. And whenever you choose to tune in, it is wonderful, and I welcome you. So I'm just going to invite you to take a few nice deep breaths in and out, and we can gently invite ourselves forward into the heart of God, into the heart of the divine, into the heart of the universe, whatever words resonate most for you. And if you are preparing for bed, I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in. It is one of my favorite times of day, bedtime. I love bedtime. I look forward to it. I have a wonderful waking life, but I find great comfort in that time of day when my body and mind begin to send signals that it is time to go to bed. And I almost always go to sleep before my husband does. And so I curl into bed and lots of covers and way too many pillows, but not really. It's just the right amount of pillows, but I sleep with a lot of pillows. When we go to a hotel, I always have to ask for extra pillows. I don't know how they expect anyone to sleep with 2 pillows. How is that even possible? So I cozy on up and put in my earbuds and play my podcast of the evening, whatever it is I'm listening to. And so I invite you to do the same. And the angels are already here, but I'm going to call them forth and ask them to join us because I love sharing this ritual with you. So, beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, gentleness, clarity, and understanding. I ask that you bring soothing, light-filled energy for each one of us, tending to our spirit and our mind and our hearts in the sweetest way possible. Dear ones, I just invite you to take a nice deep breath in and just let go, just release. Release anything that you are holding on to that is not yours. And sharing the prayers of your heart with the angels and with God, that you are in a sacred energy field right now. And so your prayers are amplified and multiplied. And the light is here for you and those you love. One of the visualizations that helps me is to visualize that the space that I am in is being filled with a soft pink light. So I invite you to do that now, knowing that this light is filled with love that has been calibrated just for you. That the angels are aware of what is transpiring in your life, and they know the prayers of your heart. And so they bring this transmission of light and love for you. And so this beautiful, soft pink light fills the space you are in and blesses you and everything in your space, everyone in your space. And this ripples out into the world to everyone and everything that you love. And then it ripples beyond that. This light is very generous and easily travels where it is needed. You need not be responsible for sending it. It is simply through your heart and consciousness that this light travels where it is needed. You are a catalyst of sorts for goodness in this world, simply by being you. So just take another deep breath in and out. And I feel the angels coming forward, and they are asking you to be gentle with yourself. There's a lot transpiring in the world, and it is easy to feel overloaded. And so when we're overloaded, sometimes our perception of our own capacity, our productivity, and our abilities can feel skewed. Just yesterday, which would have been Saturday, my husband and I had the quietest of days. I napped a lot. I listened to an audiobook. I crocheted. It felt like my nervous system just needed a day not to process anything. And so that's where this invitation for gentleness comes in. Sometimes we just need to go offline for a little bit so that we can recalibrate instead of being in a highly responsive state all the time. So just take a deep breath in as the angels bring to you this beautiful, gentle energy. And they ask you to be gentle with yourself. And if you don't know how to do this, ask the angels to teach you. And just make space for them to bring this very sweet energy to you. Just take a deep breath in as the angels bring to you this very sweet light. I've shared this with you before, but I used to go to a spa in Santa Monica when I lived in Los Angeles. And they had a quiet room. Perhaps most spas have this. I don't frequent them very often. And the quiet room had these very comfortable reclining chairs, and the lights were very dim, and there was soft music playing. They had cucumber water, spa water. And there was just something about the energy field that whenever I entered the quiet room, it felt like the whole world just melted off of me, and I could be still. And it wasn't about trying to achieve stillness. Sometimes that's my experience of meditation. It's like, okay, be quiet, be still. And my mind is having none of that. But something about the quiet room, it was just this invitation, this multi-sensory invitation to come into the gentle quiet of the moment. And so that's what I hope to do for you here and now, to invite you into our virtual quiet room, to just release and let go, and whatever you are carrying emotionally, mentally, just give it to the angels, at least for a little while, so that your entire system can rest, so that your body can rest and your mind can let go, and your emotional heart can be soothed, and to know that you are loved. You are loved. The angels are broadcasting this to you now so that you can receive and replenish. And so, my beautiful friend, I invite you to just get comfortable and cozy in whatever way works best for you. And if this is your bedtime, to just drift off whenever it happens. And if this is waking time, especially if you're operating heavy machinery, please stay awake and alert. And we are going to move into story time. And for this story time, we are going to be reading through an old community cookbook. These are some of my favorite episodes to record because it feels like a vibrational homecoming. So if you don't know what a community cookbook is, these are recipe books that were compiled typically by groups of women back in the 40s, 50s, into the present day. And this was before there was the internet, and we could pull up recipes on YouTube and on our phones. There were traditional cookbooks, of course, where the recipes were curated and tested in some sort of test kitchen. And oftentimes those recipes were aspirational. At least for me they were, because I don't like to cook. But the recipes the women would offer up in these community cookbooks were typically relatively easy and assumed that you had some sort of prowess in the kitchen already. So for instance, if there's a pie recipe, it will say, make a pie crust, as if you already know how to make one and you don't need us to teach you. That would never happen in a modern cookbook. And I love them so much because this is the way I grew up with certainly the women in my family cooking with a can of this and a package of that. I mean, they were also really good cooks, so they could turn it up when they had a chance for sure. But back then, typically, it was the women who did all the cooking, And this was not a time when we went out for fast food or prepared foods. So women were cooking 3 meals a day, every single day. And I would imagine that would get monotonous for a time. This being said by someone who does not like to cook, so I am projecting my own experience upon this. This particular community cookbook caught my attention because it is from Los Angeles, North Hollywood to be specific. It is called A Culinary Treasure. The first edition of this was published in 1949, and the version that I have, I think, was published a little later, probably in the 1950s. So again, this is before microwaves. So canned food, frozen spinach in a block were a thing. Again, no internet. So women would swap recipes or would clip them out of a women's magazine. They might have learned from their grandmother, from their mother, from the woman next door. So there's definitely a feeling of hominess. Like this is really how people cooked and ate back then. And so this one is compiled by the Sisterhood of Temple Beth Hillel. And those of you who are regular listeners, you will know that I was raised Jewish, so I have an affinity for looking for community cookbooks that tend to lean into Jewish cuisine because, again, those are the flavors of my childhood. It says, A Culinary Treasure is published by the Sisterhood of Temple Beth Hillel as a means of raising funds for the maintenance of religious school. The recipes contributed by members and friends have been carefully compiled and tested by the committee in large. Our sincere thanks and appreciation to the many advertisers whose generous support has made this publication a success. Our gratitude to Rena Waxman for her original artwork. So this particular cookbook that I purchased off of eBay has a couple things in it that I love. One is the woman who owned this wrote some of her own recipes in the pages. I'm kind of having a hard time reading her writing, so I might try and read some of these, but I don't know that I will be very successful at it. And one of the things I think is really cool is there are extensive ads in here from local merchants. I mean, this could be a whole episode of itself. I didn't grow up there, so I have no memories of any of these merchants. But maybe you'll remember some of them. So we've got Klipstein's 3 generations of decorators. They're at 12300 Ventura Boulevard in Studio City. Then there are dance classes at Hal Davis Studios at 1218 West Olive in Burbank. We have House of Kwang, authentic Chinese food in Woodland Hills. We have Herm Siegel Haberdashers. You know, we don't really have haberdashers anymore. Hat stores, those would be hat stores. They're at 12262 Ventura Boulevard. And we know this is from the 50s because the phone numbers start with an alphabet code. So it is Sunset 1 3153. So SU1 3153. We have ads for Layette's, hardware, nursery school, furniture, Canoga Park Stationery, Laurel Photographic Supplies from 5326 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. One of the cool things about moving to Los Angeles when I was 23 is there are many things named Laurel there. When I grew up, Laurel was a very uncommon name. And so I loved that everything was named Laurel, and at one point in my life, I lived on Laurel Avenue in West Hollywood. Laurel on Laurel. Delighted me. It's the little things. There was Nap's diaper service at 7601 Melrose, and a shout out to moms back then because disposable diapers did not exist at this time. So most people had a diaper service. I just remember this from when I was a kid. Not my own personal diaper service, but I just mean in general, that was a thing. I don't know why it felt important to clarify that. All right, well, let's just head on over to food, shall we? Because that's my favorite part. So we're in the appetizers section. We start off with cheese delights. Now, I would make just about anything that has delight in the title. The other thing that I love about these recipes is usually there are only a handful of ingredients. If I'm looking up a recipe and it has like 14 ingredients, I'm not making it. I'm not much of a cook to start with, but anything I do cook needs to be easy. So this looks like this is right up my alley. 3/4 of a pound of medium sharp cheese. I'm assuming they're talking about cheddar. 1/4 cup of butter melted. 1 egg and a dash of Worcestershire sauce. Look, that's all this recipe needs. That's great. Add melted butter to cheese, add Worcestershire sauce, fold in beaten egg and beat well. Spread on bread. See, they didn't have bread in the whole ingredients list, but it's just assuming you're going to know bread will be needed. So spread on bread. I'm assuming they're talking about white bread. Put under broiler for a few minutes until brown. Bread can be spread ahead of time and covered if desired. And then probably you might cut the crusts off of the bread and cut it into triangles if you were hosting a dinner and you were going to serve these cheese delights. So that is a recipe that would be up my alley. I'm not going to make it because this would really not delight my husband nor I. Now, I mean, if I was at your house and you offered me a cheese delight triangle, I would probably be delighted by it, but I wouldn't need 3/4 of a pound of cheese worth of cheese delights. Then there is a baked grapefruit. We were trying to do a lot with grapefruit back then. So you prepare your grapefruit as for serving cold. And do you know what that means? See, I know because I've eaten a lot of grapefruit in my life as a perpetual dieter. I no longer eat it. I have a whole thing where my body rejects citrus these days. But back in the day, you would cut the grapefruit in half so that each half kind of looked like a star with a lot of segments. And then you would take a grapefruit knife. They made special knives for this. And you would cut along the membrane so that each little wedge of grapefruit could easily be removed. And they had grapefruit spoons with little serrated edges, of which we had some because my mother was also a perpetual dieter. So I come into this conversation with a lot of information about grapefruit. I personally liked the pink grapefruit better. And then I discovered pomelos, which is sort of like a grapefruit and better, but you don't eat it this way. You would just peel it. But this is a baked grapefruit recipe. So prepare grapefruit as for serving cold, which that is one of my culinary expertises. Cover with brown sugar and a dash of cinnamon. Perpetual dieters, we would not do that. We would put in some sweet and low, which would not be the same. So don't kid yourself. Bake in a 450-degree oven for about 10 minutes and serve hot. Delicious for appetizer course or breakfast. I don't think I've ever had baked grapefruit, but I've eaten a lot of grapefruit in my life, for sure. You know what? Let's skip over to breads, because I am a carb girl. Okay, so this first recipe, this is up my alley. I could make this tomorrow and be very proud of myself. It is called crusty garlic bread. Before I tell you the recipe, knowing what you know now about how much I do not like to cook, what do you suppose this recipe is? It's got to be the easiest form of garlic bread ever, yes, because you can't really mess up garlic bread. So first off, you get a loaf of sourdough French bread. So you get the bread. We're not baking the bread. You're going to go get a crusty loaf of bread. Easy. I go to the supermarket all the time. I can do that. A 1/4 pound of butter. Great. I know butter. I love butter. Butter and I are friends. And a small clove of garlic. Or, in my case, it could be already minced garlic. It could be garlic butter, because they make that. Right? So already this is in my wheelhouse. So if we are using real garlic, mash garlic in a wooden bowl, add butter, and blend thoroughly. Cut the bread into 1.5-inch slices, being careful not to cut through to the bottom. Butter each of the slices, wrap loaf in brown paper or place in a paper bag, and put into a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes or until seasoned butter has a chance to permeate. Serve hot. So I would skip the whole brown bag because this day and age, I don't know if they're sanitary. I'm sure back in the 1950s, that was a different conversation. But this would be the kind of recipe I could do. And I might put Parmesan cheese on it because that would be really good. Okay, there's a couple of them here that I don't know that I would make, but I'm a little intrigued. We have peanut butter bran bread. I think I've shared with you in another episode that my husband and I have reached the stage of life where we appreciate bran and all of the gifts it brings along with it in terms of cuisine. So we have 1 cup all bran, 1 cup of milk, 1 well-beaten egg, 1 cup of enriched flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 cup of sugar, so not a lot of sugar, a 1/2 cup of peanut butter, and a 1/2 cup of raisins. So combine bran, milk, and egg. Let stand 5 minutes. Sift flour with salt, baking powder, and sugar. Cut in peanut butter until mixture is like coarse crumbs. Add bran mixture. Stir in just enough flour until it is moistened. Stir in raisins. Turn into a greased 5-by-9-inch loaf pan. Bake in moderate oven, which is 375 degrees, for 40 minutes. Okay, I don't know how good that would be. I was intrigued by peanut butter bran bread, but I was thinking more it would be one of those yummy bran muffins you might get at, a bakery that is probably 700 calories and delicious. All right, there's a recipe here for apple fritters that I am sharing just as a tribute to my husband because he loves apple fritters. One thing that I can say about the city where we live, we have a lot of donut stores. And the donut stores always have apple fritters and blueberry fritters, which are pretty much the size of your head and involve a lot of sugar and maybe a tiny bit of fruit. Let's see how much fruit these apple fritters have. So we have a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 3/4 cup of flour, a pinch of salt, 1 egg, 1/2 cup of milk, and 3 apples. Well, that's a decent amount of apples, I would say. So we're going to beat the egg, add the milk, and mix dry ingredients. Peel and cut apples into a 1/4-inch slice. Put apples in batter and let remain 1 hour, and then fry in small fritters in half butter and half shortening. Sprinkle with cinnamon and sugar. So I would imagine those are delicious. And they are probably nothing like the donut, ginormous apple fritters we get locally. All right, there's a couple cakes here that I don't know what they are. But the first one I have to share with you has a phenomenal name. Zork's Cake. Zorks. So my question, is that a name that is popular in a certain culture? Like is that a name I should know? Because I don't, but I love it. So we're going to have a 1/2 cup of butter, 2 tablespoons of sugar, so again, not much sugar, 3 eggs separated, 1 cake of yeast, a 1/4 cup of milk, and 2 1/4 cups of flour, 2 1/4. Don't want to mess that up. So we're going to cream the butter, add the sugar, and continue creaming. Then add the beaten egg yolks. Add flour and yeast dissolved in warm milk. Put in refrigerator overnight. Divide the dough into thirds for 3 cakes and roll into 1/8 inch thickness. Beat the whites and add 3/4 cup of sugar. Oh, okay. The 3/4 cup of sugar were not in the initial ingredients list, so it does have a lot of sugar. And beat well. Spread the mixture together with pecans and raisins. Again, not in the original recipe, my friends, the recipe list. In the center of each piece of dough, fold the dough to meet in the center, fold ends, and pinch and bake on a cookie sheet. The dough does not raise. So it sounds almost like it's some sort of coffee cake, or we would call it Kuchen in our family. It sounds lovely. I mean, listen, anytime you're going to give me some sort of coffee cake strudel thing, I'm delighted. And I just have to tell you, you know how I said that I skip over recipes that have too many ingredients and too many steps? I can't even tell you how many recipes I'm flipping past here because I'm like, that's a lot. So I just want you to know there are more complicated recipes in here, and perhaps not complicated to people who have a normal ability to cook and bake things. Just a lot for me. For instance, here, I'll read to you one that I was going to skip over, but I will now read because I think the title is lovely. Okay, this is a daffodil cake. I don't even know what it is, but if you invited me over and said, I'm making a daffodil cake, I would be so happy. Okay, even though I don't eat sugar, but in this virtual, astral date we're having, if you made daffodil cake, I would have some. Okay, we've got 3/4 cup of sifted cake flour, 1 cup of sifted sugar, 3/4 cup of egg whites, I don't know how many eggs that is, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of cake flour, 1/4 teaspoon of orange extract, 3 egg yolks, and 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. See, that's a lot of ingredients in my book. Okay, but I'm going to tell you how to make it in case you'd like to make a daffodil cake. So sift the flour and 1/2 cup of sugar together twice. So we're sifting. I know what sifting is because I had home ec in grammar school, which they don't really teach anymore. But I knew what sifting was back then. I do not own a sifter now, however. Beat egg whites with salt until foamy. Sprinkle cream of tartar over this and continue beating until stiff but not dry. Fold in remaining 1/2 cup of sugar, a little at a time. Sift in dry ingredients, slowly folding in carefully. Divide the batter in half. Beat egg yolks until thick and lemon colored. Combine with remaining ingredients except vanilla. Fold in 1/2 of batter. Blend vanilla into remaining 1/2 of batter. Pour yellow and white batters alternately into ungreased 9-inch tube pan. Bake in 325-degree oven for 1 hour and invert pan until the cake is cool. This feels like this would be one of those Great British Bake Off recipes that they would give you the ingredients but not tell you how to make it. I love Great British Bake Off. The people are so nice to each other on it. I just renewed Netflix with no commercials. That's the more expensive version because the new season of Great British Bake Off is on now. So that has nothing to do with this community cookbook, but since we're talking about cakes, I will never make, but would enjoy watching somebody else make. I will now offer up the daffodil cake. Okay, we're now in the cookie segment. I love cookies. This is Icebox butter cookies. So I have a really strong imprint with food. I know this will not come as a shock to you, but I was just thinking, as a kid, I must have been 6 or 7 years old. I was young. and I was out with my neighbors. So I was with my girlfriend who lived across the street and her mom. And we stopped somewhere. I don't remember why or how, but somehow, maybe it wasn't with them. Maybe it was with someone else. Okay, that part is not important. The part that is important is it was my first taste ever of real shortbread that involved a lot of butter and sugar. And I just remember thinking, this is the most delicious thing I've ever had in my life. And I still can feel my delight at that first bite. I'm now 62 years old. Isn't that crazy? Like, that is how significant my food imprinting is. I still remember that bite of shortbread. And I was thinking, I need all the shortbread now. Which, of course, I couldn't do because I was a kid and that would have been very impolite. Okay, so let's see about these icebox butter cookies. Again, 4 ingredients, although maybe there will be more ingredients in the directions. 1/2 pound of butter, 1/2 cup of confectioner's sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring, and 2 cups of flour. We're going to cream butter and sugar, add flour and flavoring, blend thoroughly, shape into rolls, place into the icebox for several hours or overnight. Cut and decorate and bake on an ungreased cookie sheet for 15 minutes. When cool, sprinkle with confectioner's sugar, also known as powdered sugar. Put powdered sugar on anything and I will be happy. You know, if okay, so again, I don't eat sugar anymore, but the old me that ate sugar, if there was some sort of pastry table, I would definitely hone in on something that had powdered sugar. If it was chocolate with powdered sugar, that is the jackpot. So that was back in the day. Let's see what else we can come up with. Okay, I just have to read you this one because I love the name. Rocks. I don't know where that name came from. Maybe somebody made up this recipe and they were so tired and their kids were like, what do you call this? And she's like, I don't know, call it rocks. Okay, so it's 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1 cup of shortening, 3 eggs, 3.5 cups of flour, 1 cup of chopped nuts, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 tablespoon of water, 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 pound of white seedless raisins, and 1/4 package of chopped fruit mix. Cream sugar and shortening. Beat eggs well. Add to creamed mixture. Add sifted flour. Dissolve soda and water. Blend all ingredients together and let stand in bowl overnight. Drop by teaspoonfuls on greased tins and bake in 400-degree oven for 12 minutes. It makes 4 to 5 dozen cookies. Tiny cookies, that would be. Rocks. I just love that name. I think some housewife was like, I don't know, call it rocks. It's rocks. That'll be the name. And it caught on. Oh, here's one after my own heart. Butterscotch surprises. As I've shared with you before, I love the flavor profile of butterscotch. And it's a surprise. What's not to love? Butterscotch surprises. Okay. And you know what? Maybe I should put a little disclaimer here. If you're going to actually make any of these recipes and you need to verify the ingredients list, please ask me, because sometimes teaspoon and tablespoon in the early morning when I'm reading these recipes, I don't know how accurate I am. And I cannot take responsibility if your butterscotch surprises. Maybe the ingredients are a little off because, I'm not really thinking anyone's going to make these. So if you're going to make any of them and you need to verify the ingredients because it sounds like I may have made a mistake, you're welcome to reach out. I cannot guarantee I will be able to locate the cookbook and recipe ever again, but at least I could try. Okay, butterscotch surprises. 1.5 cups of sifted cake flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, 1/3 of a cup of butter or shortening, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 3 eggs well beaten, 1 cup of sugar, and 2 ounces of chocolate melted, and 1/2 cup of milk. These are a lot of instructions. Do you want to hear them all? Like, there's a lot going on here. I really don't want to read it. It looks kind of boring to me. But just imagine like a large paragraph, over 500 words of directions. But it makes 20 cakes, so that would be a good thing. All right, let me see what else I can find. And see, this is how much I don't want to cook or bake. Not only do I not want to do the steps, I don't even want to read the steps. So, Scotch cakes. I bet this is shortbready. Hold on. 1/2 pound of butter. We're off to a good start. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 pound of flour, and 2/3 of a cup of sugar. It sounds just like shortbread. Sift flour with baking powder. Rub in butter with fingers, then work in sugar and flavoring. Pat out or roll, cut into squares or diamond shapes. Lay onto cookie sheets and sprinkle with candy-covered caraway seeds. Yeah, that does not sound good. I wonder if that's what they were using for colored sprinkles back then. I would put colored sprinkles that involve no caraway seeds, because caraway is like rye. No thanks. I don't want a savory shortbread. And bake in 350-degree oven. These are very rich. That sounds like that bite that I had when I was a kid. Delicious. This is an interesting flavor profile. Orange peanut butter icebox cookies. I don't know that I want orange and peanut butter together. Again, if you offered me one of these cookies, I would probably eat it and be delighted, though. Just saying. Okay, there are more desserts now. Okay, so this is a controversial ingredient. Rhubarb crumb squares. You're either, I think, team rhubarb or not. My parents loved rhubarb. I never developed a taste for it, so I am not team rhubarb, so I will not be reading this recipe to you. Okay, there's a good strudel recipe. I love strudel. It's hard to make, though, but it's really good. They have berry cobbler with streusel top. Yum. I love cobbler. Pumpkin chocolate ring. Well, my friends, as I record this, it is almost the middle of October, so this could be flavor appropriate right now. So I will read this to us, even though there are a lot of ingredients. 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of shortening. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be very careful about how I read these ingredients in case you want to make this. So, again, I'm going to start over. 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of shortening, 1 egg, 2 cups of cake flour, 1 teaspoon of soda. I'm assuming that's baking soda versus Coca-Cola. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 cups cooked pumpkin. I would get the canned Libby. And just to really annoy you, and I don't really want to annoy you, but it's in my head, how many of you remember the jingle for Libby's when it says Libby's, Libby's, Libby's on the label, label. You will like it on your table. I'm so sorry I just did that to you. But if I'm hearing it, you have to hear it too. Okay, 2 cups of cooked pumpkin. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of ginger. You could just use pumpkin pie spice, I'm sure. And 4 tablespoons of ground chocolate. Cream sugar and shortening. Add egg and beat until creamy. Sift flour, measure. Sift again with soda. Baking powder, salt, spices, and ground chocolate. Add alternately with pumpkin. This is a heavy batter. Spoon into tube pan, greased on the bottom only. Bake in 350-degree oven for 1 hour. Nuts or raisins may be added if desired. Yes to some nuts, please. That would be delightful. And here's the other thing I wonder. I know they say shortening. Can you just substitute butter? I really don't keep shortening in my house. And I'm not really going to make this, but I would be more likely to have butter in my freezer than I would have Crisco around the house. But that's just me. Okay, this is an interesting one. Leftover supreme. So we're going to start with 1 quart of stale cake, coffee cake, or bread. Okay, I might have leftover bread. That would not be out of the question, but has anybody ever had stale cake? Coffee cake? I mean, does it ever get stale at anybody's home? That would have to be, I can't imagine. I can't imagine having stale cake. But also, I am my mother's daughter, and anything that is not consumed gets wrapped up and put into the freezer. So I would have perhaps some frozen cake. But we'll just go with it. 1 quart, I don't know how you measure that, stale cake, coffee cake, and bread. Reminds me of when you take cake and you whip it up for cake pops. I don't know if that's what they're doing. That's what I was thinking. 1 pint of milk, 4 eggs, vanilla, raisins, and sugar to taste. Separate the eggs, beat the yolks, add to cake cubes with milk. Now, this is the first they're telling us that we have to cube whatever this is, but we'll cube it with milk and sugar. Beat whites and fold in the mixture. Flavor with vanilla or any desired flavoring. Add raisins, if desired. Sure, why not? I would add raisins. Although I don't know that I want raisins in my cake. Bake in greased Pyrex dish to 375-degree oven for 30 minutes. May be served with sauce, cream, or just plain. A wonderful way to use leftovers. Yeah, I guess. And you know, this is just a weird food thing. I've never eaten a cake pop in my life because they became popular when I was off sugar the first time. And then I never had them when I was eating sugar during my second wave of sugar eating because I would just go for cake. I didn't eat a cake pop, just give me the cake. And then I went off sugar again. So I've never actually eaten a cake pop in my life. It sounds like it would be lovely though, but I've never had one. And then I think from an editing perspective, I don't know if a page got ripped out of here. It might because it goes from page 40 to page 43. And the reason I say that is because it goes from seafood to frosting. Which of course they don't have anything to do with each other. So you've got a shrimp mold and marshmallow cream frosting, which of course they don't really exist in the same universe. Because it brought my attention because of the whole frosting thing. Butterscotch cream cake filling. Okay, let's see if that's going to be good. 3 tablespoons of flour, 6 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of milk scalded, 3 egg yolks, and 2 tablespoons of shortening. Yeah, I guess it's good. Sounds okay to me. Again, butterscotch, highly underrated. It somehow got eclipsed by caramel. And caramel and butterscotch, are not the same thing. And for our last recipe, how about if we do quick fudge frosting? It's interesting. I am a frosting person. I don't understand people who like cake without frosting, but I know that there are people who do not appreciate frosting. So, let me share with you one more thing about my whole frosting soliloquy here. I do not like grocery store buttercream that just tastes like shortening. But I like really good frosting. I also am not a fan of fondant. Ganache, love it. Like flavored whipped cream, love it. There's this wonderful woman named Phyllis who owns a dessert place that comes to our farmers markets. And she makes this delicious strawberry shortcake. And it's very light. It's got this, of course, yellow shortcake, fresh strawberries. And this whipped cream, I don't know what she puts in it. I'm sure there's vanilla and sugar and magic fairy dust. I do not know what is in it, but it is the most delicious thing ever. So whenever I see her, I have to get one for Wes, my husband. Okay, back to quick fudge frosting. Oh, and you know what? Phyllis listens to the podcast. Phyllis, are you listening? Phyllis, I'm talking about your whipped cream because it's so delicious. And I can't remember the name of your bakery right now. Otherwise, I would totally give you a plug. But if you go to the Vallejo Kaiser Farmers Market on Fridays or the Vallejo Farmers Market on Saturdays, you will know Phyllis. She has like a pink tent, and she has all kinds of delicious cakes, and she has amazing strawberry shortcake. So there you go, Phyllis. I gave you a commercial because I love your stuff. And she makes agave sweetened cheesecake, which I can have because it's not refined sugar. And they're these teeny tiny cheesecakes. So like each cheesecake is like a bite. Perfect for me. I think maybe her bakery's sugar and spice. Anyways, I hope you made it this far. Surprise! I gave you a commercial. So, okay. I didn't know I was going to do that. I would have done a better job of it had I known that we were going to go in that direction. Okay, so if you see Phyllis at one of the Vallejo farmers markets, tell her hello and taste some of her delicious stuff. She does samples, so she'll let you sample stuff. Okay, back to our quick fudge frosting. 3 ounces of bitter chocolate, 2 tablespoons of butter, 12 marshmallows cut in pieces, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, a 1/4 cup of water, dash of salt, and 2 cups of sifted confectioner's sugar. Place the first 5 ingredients in a saucepan, heat over low flame until chocolate and marshmallows are melted and mixture is smooth, stirring constantly. Remove from fire and add remaining ingredients. Beat until thick enough to spread. Good for chocolate frosted cookies or any loaf cake. Or, this is just me now, you could spread it on graham crackers and it would be like a s'more delight, right? Because it already has the chocolate and it already has the marshmallows. And you could do dippers. Maybe you just get graham crackers and serve it like fondue. That would be delicious. Look at me being all creative here. So we're going to stop here. So thank you to the lovely, lovely women of the Temple Beth Hillel Sisterhood in North Hollywood, or Valley Village, I think as it has been renamed and rebranded, California. And to all of the women who cooked and made sure that we were fed throughout our lives. So I wish you the sweetest of dreams, and I look forward to spending time with you again soon. I love you very much, and thank you.